We are back. Your pals are back. It's been I don't know, it's been like a week or two since we've done the show. And I don't know about you all, but I've been fiending for some animal advocacy. The Professionals and Animal Lovers show. I was on a couple calls today, and I don't always talk about PALs, the Professionals and Animal Lovers show. But a gentleman who is a new relationship, we were doing a one-on-one networking call, and he's like, I want to hear about your podcasts. And I'm thinking he's going to ask me about philanthropy and focus. He's like, what's the deal with the Professionals and Animal Lovers show? And I said, no kidding. All right. I said, I'm glad you asked, man. I'm glad you asked. So I told him the story. I said, we are changing the world. We're amplifying the message. I love that word, amplify. But we on this program are amplifying the message that the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. We do a bunch of things on the show, but what we really focus on is learning, educating, and then taking that and becoming advocates. So learning, educating, and advocating. And it all really came out of Valerie and I on a phone call one day. And Valerie says, I want to do a podcast. I want to be a show. I want to do a show again. I want to be a podcaster. And I said, well, obviously it's going to be about animals. And then that is now what is the Professionals and Animal Lovers movement. It is a journey we are on. I mean, I was thinking about something this morning, Val. I don't think I'd have a dog if it wasn't for this show. I really don't think I'd have a dog right now. But Cheeto would not be in our lives. And sometimes he might think that's a good thing to not be in this crazy house with 4 kids and my wife and I. But we wouldn't have Cheeto if it wasn't for this show. I wouldn't have met so many great people. You and I were talking earlier today. There wouldn't have been so many relationships created, and business relationships created, transactions that have happened as a result of this show. I wouldn't have met John DiLeonardo. I wouldn't be drinking oat milk in my coffee every day if it wasn't for meeting John and standing in front of a Starbucks and first of all, getting cranky that Starbucks upcharged me 80 cents. First of all, I didn't like your coffee anyway to begin with. I'm a Dunkin' Donuts guy. Try to put the rant aside, Tommy D. Other people are listening. But those guys, but 80-cent upcharge, not cool. But I've been buying oat milk. Even this morning, I had to go buy more oat milk. I'm on the oat milk trip. I was a big half and half guy, and we had John on the show recently. But that's what this show is. So we have really built this compassion network, where we're continuing to build and nurture this network. Really, when you got business people and you got advocates and they all get together, everyone wins.
Especially the animals. And really quickly, I need to make this point. Knowing that animal lovers kind of have that instant bond with animal lovers. We've been doing some pet working events, right? So not traditional networking events. We're bringing animal lovers of all walks of life to the table, including people in rescue and advocacy and people who don't necessarily even work or work a traditional, a traditional vocation that you would find at a business networking event. Like, we're reaching college students and retirees, and we're reaching people who are 9-to-5ers and have a traditional job, but they want to be a part of this because we want to support all of this effort. And really quickly, just a reminder to anyone who wants to get involved with animal advocacy, the number one thing that you have to do is check your voter registration, make sure it's accurate, and then find out who your legislators are and basically put them on speed dial, because you're going to be calling them a lot. And really quickly on the advocacy front, I absolutely have to mention this upcoming event because unfortunately the Belmont Stakes is about to take place again. So our friends at Horse Racing Wrongs, as well as John DiLeonardo of Humane Long Island, and other groups too are getting involved. The turnout grows each year. There is a protest this Saturday at Belmont Stakes. It's 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And if you can make it, signs will be provided. We would love for you to be a voice for the voiceless, because, you know, literally dozens of horses died last year at Belmont Stakes, and we went over the cruelties of that industry. So please go. And today we're going to talk about the cruelties behind another horse related industry, which is the New York City carriage drawn horses. And we have a wonderful guest who's been advocating for this for years, and we're going to get into it. Tommy DeMisa, would you please have the pleasure of introducing Edita?
I would like to have that pleasure of introducing Edita Birnkrant. Val, where are your pom-poms? Get your freaking pom-poms, get your hands together. Executive Director of NYCLASS, which is New York Clean and Livable and Safe Streets, if I'm saying it correctly. Is that right?
New Yorkers for Clean, Livable, and Safe Streets, exactly.
New Yorkers for Clean, Livable, and Safe Streets. And I don't know about you, but when I'm in New York City, I would like some clean, livable, safe streets. Especially, it's only June right now, in early June, but I will tell you, those streets get somewhat stinky in the summertime. So they're not so clean and they're not so livable. And that's why I live way out here in the country. So Edita, Executive Director of this organization, share with us. I mean, let's start at the top, start about your work, what you do, and then really, this is a problem. We're going to talk about a problem and we're going to propose some solutions. Is that fair?
Exactly. Yes. I
Take
think
it away, yeah.
So NYCLASS was founded in 2008 with the goal of getting the horse carriages off the street. The founder of the organization was a lifelong equestrian, rescued horses, so lived in Manhattan and saw every day what these horses are going through. For decades, different organizations and individuals had been trying to help these horses. They would drop dead in the summer, they're being worked to death, there's crashes that occur all the time. So that was the goal of starting the organization. And I came on as executive director in 2017, and I worked on horse issues for many years, wild horses out in the West, saving them, domestic horses as well. So I was very aware and had collaborated with NYCLASS for years on the carriage horse issue. But here we are in 2023, and the situation is worse than ever, unfortunately. We have legislators that are ignoring the issue. We have documented dozens and dozens of horses in such bad shape. Horses are being worked to death. There's regular crashes in traffic. Horses don't belong in traffic. It's 2023. It's not 1823. A lot of people don't understand that horses are prey animals. So that means they have a highly developed flight drive. When they're frightened, they startle easily, actually. They run. So this has created so many public safety risks. People have nearly been killed. It's going to happen regularly. They're not just working in the park. Their stables are on the far west side of Manhattan. They travel up to 2 miles in rush hour traffic. That's where a lot of the problems are. But even in the park is heavily trafficked.
Yeah.
There's emergency vehicles in there. There's cyclists, horses spook in the park, and these horses are not well. You're talking about, if you remember the case of Ryder last year, this was a case that went worldwide.
Right.
Ryder was a 26-year-old horse. That's the equivalent of an 85-year-old human.
Come on, Edita, an 85-year-old man or woman like dragging people down the street, like that's
not only that, his owners lied about his age, falsified veterinary records, submitted that to the city, got caught after the fact, but it was too late. 26 years old, this horse was emaciated. He actually had cancer. We found out after the fact that he had cancer. I think there was also other things wrong with him. For 4 months through last year's brutal summer, they worked that elderly, emaciated, sick horse until his body gave out on August 10th of last year. He collapsed in Hell's Kitchen. The video went viral around the world to millions and millions of people. And unfortunately, it was too late to save him. He died 2 months later. We absolutely believe animal cruelty laws were violated. This was a crime. The DA said they were investigating. Nothing came of it. So you see that horses are being worked to death. They're lying about their ages. That should be considered a crime as well, submitting false veterinary information to the city. They just had a small fine to pay. That's it. So you could work a horse to death in 2023 and just pay $1,000 fine and get away with it and continue on with business as usual.
That's just the cost. that's
Yeah.
a cost of doing business, right? Like if you're a business person, okay, let's just, I'm the junior advocate, everybody. I'm on your side. Don't get mad at Tommy D just yet. But the businessman or woman might go, I got $1 million business here.
Mhm.
I make money and I don't care about animals. So the animal dies. I'll just get another one. And oh, the city's going to find me. So throw them $1,000. Okay.
Exactly.
And you move on. So that becomes the problem. Like if we don't have stiff or strict ramifications for this criminal, as you said, behavior, well, then why people just going to keep doing it? People don't
Right.
care enough unless they're hurt. And
There has to be consequences.
Yeah.
So, right, they already know, and they've been getting away with this kind of behavior for decades at this point. There's a kind of lawlessness and an arrogance. Well, why follow any laws if there's no consequences? We're the only ones out there checking, we're spotting all of these. So you have, like, they will purchase, it's much like buying a junker car to a lot of them. And even the owner who got caught admitted, yeah, I knew this was an old horse. They purchased them on the cheap, and then you work them till they die. But this time they got caught and it got worldwide attention, but it's still going on. There's still elderly horses that already should be retired. They shouldn't be on the streets. That's such a hard life, pounding the pavement. They're never touching grass. They don't have any grass or pasture or turnout. They go back to solitary confinement cells. They're chained up all day, confined with blinders on, between the shaft of the carriage, operating in terrible, chaotic, stressful traffic, nose to tailpipe often, trucks swerving around. It's horrifying. And then they go back to these solitary confinement cells. They don't touch grass. It's so unhealthy. It's so unnatural. And they're in bad shape. Many of them have pre-existing injuries. They're not getting vet care. If you have a broken down old harness racing horse like Ryder was, right? And then he was an Amish horse for many years, didn't get proper vet care. He's coming in already in such bad shape. And then imagine throwing that horse on the street 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, not touching grass. That is torture for a horse.
It's
I call it torture.
despicable. It's despicable. And it makes me so angry. I also want you to speak to, because this is something I've experienced on a more localized level, but you know, I do recall, and I will call it out, that de Blasio campaigned on this issue, and he was vowing to end this cruel industry. And unfortunately, as we've experienced with other politicians, they'll campaign off the backs of the animals. They'll get into office or get back into office, whatever. And then it's like, what's a horse? Like, they don't remember what they vowed to do, and they break their campaign promises. And my message to those people, there's other elected officials who do this too, is that no one's going to work harder to rally against someone who breaks the promises to the animals than the animal lovers. Like, we don't forget. No, we are a tenacious, committed, loyal group, and we are relentless. Fair warning.
Listen, trust me, as somebody who just started hanging out with these people in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
She ain't kidding, gang. I've learned a lot about this for sure.
Can you also speak to the other side of it? Because you know, of course, there are people, when we're talking about an actual industry, you know, you have a lot of people that are like, oh, but the jobs, what about the jobs, right? Can we talk about the actual life of a horse carriage driver?
Right. Well, actually, you know, the legislation we have in the city council was renamed Ryder's Law in honor of Ryder. And what's so great about it, especially from a business perspective, is that this is a win-win for everyone, for the owners, for the drivers, because it doesn't put anyone out of business. What Ryder's Law does would phase out and replace the horse carriages with electric carriages. This is something that has been successfully done in many cities around the world. And we even have sort of an economic study that shows that they would increase their profits by 200%, because it's very expensive to even keep horses alive, even if you're not doing it well. The vet care, the feed, all of that is extremely expensive. So if you have an electric carriage that looks beautiful and nostalgic in much the same way, can give the same ride, you can make a bigger profit. In Guadalajara, Mexico, they did exactly that. They transitioned horse carriages to electric carriages. And there was a little mini documentary done interviewing some of the owners and drivers saying they make more money now.
There's still a driver, so somebody's still sitting up top of it.
The driver, right? It looks actually the ones that exist are even nicer than what the horse carriages is. It's like a more safe but beautiful antique style electric carriage, like a horseless carriage. So it looks very similar. And then you have the person in front driving it with a steering wheel. There's just no horse, but it's still beautiful and it's actually safer. And the drivers in our legislation, that was a very important part of it. Right now, we feel the drivers are being exploited by the owners. They're being misclassified as independent contractors, right? They're not employees, so they have no kind of disability, anything they get injured, no health insurance, nothing. They're being misclassified, we feel, and they're just getting paid in cash what they make from the rides and giving half to the owner. It's not a good situation for them.
Wow.
We think the owners are exploiting them. The legislation would make it so that they basically would almost get the equivalent. They would get like prevailing wages. It would become like a real union.
Yeah, well, you would want to join that job.
They would be employees, right? You would be legal employees in the law. Like right now, an independent contractor, you don't really have. It's not a good.
Is that what they do? I mean,
that's what they do, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, no, and I'm very familiar with that particular move. We see it in other industries, and
it's a big problem, misclassifying workers, and by the standards. We actually had labor attorneys have looked into it by the standards of what an employee is classified. These guys, they have to work certain hours, certain days, certain times. These are the rules. They're not just really like independent in that way.
Right. So right there, you're breaking the rules set forth by what qualifies a 1099 independent contractor. I did want to say thank you, by the way, because too often we can identify a problem, but there aren't proposed solutions. This sounds like an amazing, wonderful solution where everyone, the drivers would win, obviously the horses would win, and even the environment would win. I mean, really, nobody wants to have to step around or step over a horse maneuver in the middle of the street, right?
And you mentioned in the summer, it's very bad in the summer because there's manure, the horse urine, there's the park. It's also cyclists hate that there's these piles of manure. They can crash through them. People hate it, runners, cyclists hate it. But the safety issue right now, what we have are 68 of these contraptions that are very poorly constructed carriages that are basically made of wood. When they get hit by a car, they fall apart. There's no safety protocols. They don't have to adhere to any road or safety standards. Worst of town traffic.
Why?
They're not a motor vehicle.
Because but how come? I'm not blaming you. I don't this is me being frustrated, and sometimes I'm immature. But here's the thing: I'm like jumping up and down because that it's all money, right? So somebody's paying somebody to look the other way. Because I will not because I'm an animal advocate, because that is part of it. But I haven't been in these little I'm looking at them on my other screen here because I'm Googling these electric ones. I'm trying to find the right picture to share to everybody. But my point is, I wouldn't put my kids in this thing aside from the animals, even if it was a man pulling the cart down the street, because if that gets hit, it's going to crumble and my kids are not being protected. And cars drive around New York City, not always safely. I'll say that. I'll try to be diplomatic. But I mean, why is it okay? Is it just that, there's so many other things and nobody has, I guess this is what it is. I talk to nonprofits all day long. Your organization and others have to exist to shine a light on what's going on, or nobody makes any changes and people just get away with breaking the rules, right? I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, people want to keep doing what they're doing. The problem is they exist in kind of a legal loophole because they are not motor vehicles. So that's the thing. The electric carriages, even though in the park they would only go 5 miles an hour, you have to adhere to federal and local road and safety standards, DOT. These would be safe contraptions that are out there as opposed to the horse carriages where you're operating. And I can't express how chaotic and dangerous the traffic they're in. We're talking about Lincoln Tunnel traffic, rush hour from Central Park all the way to some of the stables. There's one stable on 30, right, the Javits Center, 37th Street. There's one on 38th. There's one on 52nd. Every day they're going back and forth. And not just that, they're giving rides in the traffic. They're legally allowed to leave the park and give rides. So you'll see them sometimes all over Midtown with passengers in crazy traffic. You have these wooden carriages that are not great, poorly constructed, that don't adhere to any road or safety standards. I see families with toddlers, newborn babies, there's no seat belts. I cringe. It's so unsafe. So that's the other thing in terms of public safety. Having these electric carriages that have to pass these very strict standards mean we're going to have carriages on the road now that are modern and safe and eco-friendly. They're electric, they're eco-friendly. Other cities around the world, like I've said, Guadalajara, Mexico, Mumbai, India, just replaced their entire fleet of horse carriages with beautiful electric carriages. There's cities in Turkey that have done it. Germany, it's all over the world. In New York, we're stuck in the past. It's not 1823 anymore, but we're acting like it is. And the owners of the industry, who are the ones that benefit from keeping things in the past, they don't want to change things. And unfortunately, they've been politically connected. They teamed up with the transport workers union, who are really, the union is doing the bidding of the owners, not the workers. It's the opposite of what a union should be. But unions have a lot of tremendous power in New York City. So that's what we're up against. That they're bullying the carriage of the city council. We have 18 council members signed on as co-sponsors of the bill. That's not enough. We need at least 26 to pass a bill. But
okay, so hold on. Let me just hit pause for 1 second, because this is a really important component to all of this. So first of all, you mentioned the bill, Rider's bill.
Rider's Law, and it's actually Intro 573, but it's been renamed Rider's Law, but the number is 573.
Okay, so can you give us a little bit of an update about where that bill is? And then of course, a call to action, specifically, like who do you need to get involved and who should they be contacting?
Right. So right now, the bill, it was actually introduced last summer in 573. It was about a couple months before Rider collapsed, and then we renamed it. So right now, what happens is in the city council, a bill will go into a specific committee first. In this case, it's in the Department of Health committee, but it's supposed to be the Department of Health that oversees the carriage horses. They do a lousy job, but that's where the bill is. So we have 18, the sponsor, the main sponsor of the bill is Councilmember Rob Holden, and Robert Holden, and there's 18 altogether who have signed on as co-sponsors. So the bill is still in the health committee. We have been pushing to get a hearing on the bill. That hasn't happened. Unfortunately, the person who heads the health committee, her name is Councilmember Lynn Shulman. She has promised in the past to support getting horses off the street, but I think is being beholden to the unions, has not even signed on to the bill, won't hold the hearing. So that's frustrating. And we think the head of the council, Adrian Adams, is also sort of not in favor of the bill at this point. So what people can do, especially if you live in New York City, in any of the 5 boroughs, the most important thing you can do is call your own council member. If you don't know who your council member is, just Google New York City Council member, look up on the New York City Council website, put your address in, it'll tell you exactly who your council member is. Everyone has one council member. You give them a call, it takes 2 minutes, an email as well if you want, but a call is really good. Say, hi, I'm your constituent, I live XY. I really want you to co-sponsor Rider's Law. These horses are being worked to death. And something else everyone could do, even if they don't live in New York City, besides, the people who can call their own council member. Hold on, I'm finding the number. The speaker of, there you go, right. So you see where it says put your address in, you can find your council member. So the speaker of the council, her name is Adrian Adams. She's called the speaker because she is the head of the council. She has tremendous power. She can move legislation. She can put it front. Unfortunately, she's been sort of pushing this under the rug, and we have been trying to get as many people as possible to contact her. So her number is, if people want to call her district office, you can call if you live anywhere, even outside of the city, because she's the head of the council. And really, she has the most responsibility here to put forth issues that are important. Her number is 718-206-2068. We've been directing a lot of people to very politely. It's always important to be polite and respectful. Say, hey, we hear there's more horse abuse going on. Even since Rider collapsed, the industry was supposed to clean things up. That's Adrian Adams. There's always a district office and a legislative office. Sometimes the district office, they usually have staff there more often. A lot of times we'll have people call there. So that's her number, the district, because she represents Queens. Her number is 718-206-2068. Whoever answers the phone, they have to take down your information. If you're a constituent, it's especially important to say that, but anybody can call the speaker, Adrienne Adams, because she represents the whole council. Another
Question.
council member that's important is Lynn Shulman. If you want to look up council member Lynn Shulman, she's numbered District 29. Like I said, she's the head of the health committee. That's where the bill is right now.
Right.
She also has tremendous power, and she has promised to get the horses off the street. And it's very disappointing that she hasn't even signed on to the bill. She hasn't given a hearing. We've been begging for that. We just want this issue to have transparency. We want a hearing. We know that there was a poll taken that of New Yorkers, over 71% agreed that they want to ban horse carriages to get them off the street. That's a pretty good number. New Yorkers don't